So it's been some time again, although not as bad as the last gap. The video I'd been planning to release is kinda outdated now. Most of the issues that I was talking about have since been resolved. I've also been doing way more programming than playing anything, let alone recording videos. In fact, that's the main reason why I've ended up in a position to make this series. TLDR, I've drastically increased both my typing speed and how long I type for, which hadn't been causing me any issues until about a month ago when I started noticing pains in my fingers after a couple hours. So before I did myself any serious damage, I decided to finally look into both ergonomic keyboards, hence the title of the series, and alternative keyboard layouts. This series will chronicle my progress from 80 to 110 words per minute QWERTY on a standard full-size staggered keyboard to hopefully similar speeds on an alternative layout, columnar, split keyboard. The first step for me was looking into keyboards. After all, there's no point spending weeks or even months relearning a new layout if my keyboard was going to be doing most of the damage anyway. After a few days of research into the more esoteric keyboard types, I settled on the Moonlander Mark I by ZSA. Anyone who says you can't put a price on health is clearly wrong, because the Moonlander is about 3 times the price of the Corsair K70 Mark II, my current keyboard. However, compared to the competition in ergonomic keyboards, and there isn't much, the price isn't as gut-wrenching for the feature set and quality, and unless you want to buy the equipment and spend the time to solder your own board together from a kit, £200 plus is basically what you're looking at a split columnar/ortholinear keyboard, with decent mechanical switches that doesn't come with a BOM. Some of the standout features of this board is the easy-to-use tenting implementation, sculpted keys, on the blank caps only, hot swappable switches, kinda important when the board costs more than some people's computers, and extremely fleshed out configurator, also compatible with the other boards this company makes. Now you may notice that I've used entirely stock footage for the Moonlander, and that's because it's not actually here yet, and won't be for another couple of weeks plus shipping time, but I wanted to start this series the day I started the transition over to ergonomics. While changing the keyboard itself brings the most improvement in the ergonomics department, the keyboard layout can make a difference, and won't need you to sell a kidney on the black market. Now you may have, like myself, only encountered non-QWERTY layouts in the form of country differences, AZERTY and QWERTZ for example. But there's a surprisingly wide selection of alternatives designed for comfort and efficiency instead of better performance outside of English. The 4 main choices you have are QWERTY, because obviously you could just not change layout, Dvorak, Colmac, and Workman. Now everyone is already familiar with QWERTY in some respects, so let's compare the other 3 to it. Dvorak. Dvorak is a very old layout designed in 1936 by August Dvorak and his brother-in-law, William Dealey. Now this is going to look very strange if you've never viewed anything but QWERTY before, however I assure you that there's a very good reason why the letters are placed like this, and it is the same philosophy used in the other 2 alternative layouts I'll get to. Take a look at this heat map, site I used to make this in the description. You can see most of the commonly used letters on the frequently used English word dataset are on the home row. While this is a substantial improvement over QWERTY for ergonomics, there's quite a few flaws which caused me to not choose it. Number 1. Many letters are not just on different fingers compared to QWERTY, but entirely different hands. Number 2. The top and bottom rows of letters are shifted over to the right hand, which may be beneficial to most, but I'm left-handed, and even if I wasn't, I think this imbalance would cause comfort problems by putting far more of the workload on my right hand instead of evenly distributing it. Number 3. Common letters are not fully prioritised on the home row. If you take a look at the heat map there, you'll see the top right has commonly used letters, meanwhile U and H are infrequently used yet still on the home row. Number 4. Common shortcut keys Z, X, C and V are not preserved. Workman. Workman is obviously better than QWERTY for comfort, and in my opinion better than Dvorak, solving most of the issues I had with the layout, however some still remain, albeit less severe. Number 1, a few letters have swapped hands again, but far more manageable amounts. Number 2, M has slid in between ZX and CV, but nowhere near as bad as Dvorak. Number 3, commonly used keys still not fully prioritised on the home row, namely the left hand's middle finger lying on H. And finally, Colmac. Now I specifically went with the Colmac Mod DH variant for ISO keyboards, because that seems to be preferred over vanilla Colmac, and is a version designed specifically for matrix keyboards like the Moonlander. This is pretty much an all-around improvement on the Workman layout, and is more commonly used, so you'll find more pre-made support for it. Now it still doesn't solve every issue, just like how Workman doesn't solve every issue with Dvorak, but it still has all the most commonly used letters on the home row, finally. It doesn't disturb the common shortcut keys, and is very similar to the QWERTY layout, making it relatively easy to switch over. As of recording this, I've been using Cormac DH for exactly 1 day on my current keyboard, so I can hit the ground running with the Moonlander when it arrives. I usually type at 80 to 110, but expecting to replicate years of typing experience within a month is obviously ridiculous. So I'm aiming for 60 words per minute, what I consider a usable typing speed without wanting to blow my brains out, in the next 1 to 3 weeks, before the new keyboard arrives at least. I can currently type at around 18 words per minute with Cormac, but using training software instead of just generic typing means I'm at 30 words per minute on a small subset of keys. Speaking of training software, I found keybr.com's gradual letter introduction, combined with Monkey Type's extensive customizability and tags for comparing my QWERTY and Cormac speed/accuracy easily, for full keyboard training works pretty well. And if you watch around some other keyboard layout switching videos, you'll find the same 2 sites come up constantly. I'm going to try to get into slightly not completely trash upload schedule, but for now, see you until I've got around to making something else to upload.